Go ahead, Eugene. Call this meeting to order. Eugene, if you could call the roll for us.
Matthew Lehane. Clark.
Here.
Lee Anderson. Here. Joe Bonds. Kevin Brown. Paul Carricker. Chris Collins. Lynn Faust. Aaron Frank. Deborah Foltz. Greg Goldstein. Rachel Inman. Here. Jamie Jackson. Jim Lynch. Ben Matters. Clay Murray. Jacob Pasquick.
Here.
Craig Pennington.
You're
Brian.
Oh,
Oh, you're not calling alts?
Oh, we don't use it, but I can do that.
Yeah, call alts because we might need them for the.
Colagnello. Matthew Decatur. Linda Lasut. Deborah Lately. Rob Maple. Kim Mitchell.
Well, in this case,
Ryan Ogle. John Summer.
you don't have to call them all, just note that Brian is here.
Brian is here.
Dragon online?
No.
Okay.
All right.
This is unusual.
This is very strange. Did our email go out to
I
them?
got it.
Okay, got it. Oh, we wouldn't have gotten people saying they weren't coming if they hadn't got the email, so.
Yeah, two apologies, one from Mr.
Lynch.
Lynch.
Yeah, we got one from Mr.
And
Lynch
one
and
from
Mr. Goldstein.
Yeah. Two apologies.
We got one from Mr. Brown saying he was gonna be online again, which we need to talk to him about that.
Okay.
And Chair Lahane's at his board of supervisors. All right, well, next is to approve the agenda for tonight.
I'm going to approve.
You,
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries.
That was easy.
And for the meeting minutes from our September 5th meeting,
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries. Public involvement, that would typically be announcing public comment periods, correct? So
That's correct.
right there, number 6, the actual public comment on anything slate related. Do we have submitted for comment?
We do have a submitted comment, and for public involvement, we are opening public comment for dog and bike pedestrian small area. For public comment.
Yeah, just a little bit more on that. We don't have to read that public comment, we decided, but we are opening public comment period for the Dahlgren Bike and Pedestrian Small Area Plan. I have presented that to you all before, so you're familiar with that. That's going to be open from tonight until January 27th, when the GWRC board meeting is open. I will send out this thing here, so you guys have a link to the plan, and you can submit comments to fampo@gwregion.org. That's all we've really got on that. There's a link to a submitted comment, but it's been read to other committees already, so we don't need to read it. But if you'd like to read it, you can read it in your own packet. You guys already have it.
So we would be on to Mr. Hollis's treasury report.
Wow, I'm not ready. So. Are you at the door? Are you joining the meeting?
Your truck lights are going on and off. Maybe you're just sitting on your.
It's not making noise, right?
No,
Okay.
but they're like on right now.
Thank you.
Okay.
That's fine, I can carry on while
You're
Kevin
done.
sorts out the truck. So, next slide, we are working on a project which we're calling FINA, Future Integrated Network Analysis, to look at what you can see there on the wall, or what you will see in the slides. The regional travel demand model has been updated over the last 2 years. And these are the first maps we were able to make of the congestion in the region. What we did for the FAMPO travel demand model is we cheated. We asked the consultant and VDOT to please include Caroline and King George Federal Highways likes us to split up our work into rural and urban, and we don't agree. So we've complied legally. We've created a FAMPO long-range plan, and we've created a rural long-range plan, and we're administering the two programs separately. But for the purposes of the model, the traffic in King George is going to affect the traffic in Stafford. So it's an integrated region in terms of cars. So we continue to have the model cover all 5 jurisdictions so that we get an integrated plan. So we're looking at the results of the travel demand model, and we're also looking at our what's called the constrained long range plan. It's constrained because we have to prove that we're going to get the money to implement the projects in our long range plan. Now, the rural counties do not have to have a constrained long range plan in the rural long range plan, only the urban jurisdictions. However, we're doing an analysis of how we're doing with congestion, how we're doing with infrastructure investment, and how we're doing with transportation outcomes in our region. So first thing we did is looked at population estimates, and then we looked at the travel demand model. So if we can click the next slide. Thank you. So that is the growth, or what's the opposite of growth? Shrinkage of the population in Virginia. And we did this analysis because we've been doing this for 20 years. FAMPO and GWRC have been looking at the regional population. And frankly, for 23 years, the GWRC region, what you see on the map, has been the fastest growing region in the state of Virginia, right? So we said, well, what happened during COVID? Did the pattern continue? So what you can see here is that the areas in blue are the fastest growing areas in the state of Virginia. And of those, the fastest growing is the GWRC region, which is where you're sitting right now tonight. So this region continues right through COVID and up to today, up to the end of 2023 anyway, because we don't have 2024 figures yet. It continues to be the fastest growing region in Virginia. The areas in red are losing population quite quickly. The areas in yellow, the growth is either tiny or they're losing population as well. Northern Virginia out here, they're growing, not as fast as us, but they're growing. And then the blue, which really is Richmond and surrounding counties plus ourselves, are where all the people are moving to, right? So people from the red are just leaving the state or moving to where we are. People in the dark mustard color are also leaving, and then the light cream and the blue is attracting people. People are moving to those areas. Northern Virginia is in trouble if you look at this section here, but excluding Shenandoah and so on. So what does that do to our travel pattern? We are the fastest growing region. For 23 years, every year we've been the fastest growing region. That brings lots of people into the region. It's probably because, first of all, we were on I-95, and secondly, the land cost here is less. So of the I-95 regions, it's less expensive here to buy a property than Northern Virginia or Richmond or Hampton Roads, etc. So that's probably why. Next slide. I did a quick calculation. So 20 to 23, those are the actual figures. And I've done a projection of 2024, 2025 population per county. The 2024, 2025 figures are my calculation, right? I've used a conservative estimate. So I've used the rate that those jurisdictions were increasing before COVID. During COVID, we actually increased our rate of increase. So I've gone back to the before COVID rate of increase, which was a little slower growth. So that's a conservative estimate. It could be more than that, but we'll only find out when they publish figures for 24. But the big news is that from 2020 to here, we're adding 25 to 31,000 new people to the region. You know what the population is of Fredericksburg? Less than that. So we are adding one complete Fredericksburg size population to the region every 4 to 5 years. That is enormous. Where are we going to put all those people in the future? There's enough land for them to be housed, but there's not enough space on the roads for them to all drive their cars. So if every household has 3 cars, it's going to be gridlock. So that's the background. Next slide. Now we get into the new model. This has just been finished. In fact, the middle map on the wall there, no committee at FAMPO or anybody outside of this office has actually seen before tonight. It's a brand new map that we did. We showed the first one and the third one to the TAC, but no one's seen the one in the middle. So it's on the screen, but I'll walk you through it. You can see it on the wall if you're closer to the side of the room. The one on the left is the congestion in 2022. Green is good, means there's no real congestion. Red is it's a disaster, and yellow or orange is like it's getting congested, but it's not unworkable. Just to clarify what you're looking at, that's a map of the region and the roadways, the major roadways anyway. Just to be clear, that is PM peak. So it's like between 4:30 and 6 in the evening. That's the level of congestion. And in each case, the model has picked the worst direction, right? So that is kind of the worst case scenario when there are no crashes on the road. There are no accidents, no fires, no problems, regular traffic and nothing else. That's what the congestion looks like now. And you can see the I-95 corridor going sort of a slight curve through the region like that, and Fredericksburg in the middle. So then when you look at the 2050 map, if you flip over, Eugene, to the next map. So the one in the middle over here is not in the presentation. We just made it today. That shows you what happens if we don't build any new capacity. We don't build any more roads. We don't add any more buses. We don't add any more trains. We just leave everything like it is today. That's what the congestion will look like in 2050 if we do nothing. On the right, this map, which is also on the screen, is what happens if we build everything in the FAMPO constrained long-range plan. Right? It's $3.2 billion. If we build all those projects, including that new interchange on Harrison Road and I-95, that's what will happen. And the delta between those two maps is what we will achieve if we build all those $3.2 billion worth of stuff. So we are making a fourth map, which is on my computer, but we haven't reviewed it yet, so I don't want to show it to anybody. But basically, if you look carefully, you'll see improvements. So this is Route 2 Dixon Road, which becomes what road in Spotsy? Tidewater Trail, basically, this green line here. You can see over here, it's red and orange. So there's smart scale projects that are about to be constructed, which widen it. Yep. And now in 2050, it's green, it's free flowing. So we achieved something, right? And so on, you can go through the map and you will identify places where we've improved things. You can see there's more orange over here than there is over here. You can see it's red. Here we've moved it to orange by various projects. The Harrison Road interchange does help. So if you look here, this is Harrison Road east of I-95. It's orange. Over there, it's blood red. Unfortunately, when you build the interchange, this doesn't go from red to orange. It improves a little, but remember, you're putting a new option for people to get on I-95. So a lot of cars are going to get off there that are not able to get off there now. So when you add all that extra traffic, of course, it's going to make it more difficult and you're going to have congestion remain there. But that pulls congestion off of Route 3. So Route 3 improves when you open the Harrison Road interchange. But that makes Harrison Road more busy. But again, all of that's relative because we're also going to widen Harrison Road. So that will then reduce the congestion. The net effect is Harrison Road is better, but I can't show you that on the map because there is still a lot of new traffic that's going to get off there from I-95, right? So as you go on, you can have a look. Because the FAMPO constrained long range plan has no projects outside of the FAMPO region, you will see no change really in the, no significant change in King George and Caroline. There are some little changes because of projects in FAMPO. So this is the dividing line here between Caroline and Spotsy and between King George and Stafford. So over here, we're not building anything with FAMPO funds. So you will see that weird things happen, right? First of all, there's no marked change. In some cases, it gets worse, but there's nothing being built. The reason it's getting worse is because of projects being built in the FAMPO region, right? So that's why these funny little things happen. For whichever of these two maps is reality, whether we build no projects or whether we build all the projects, in King George, Caroline's going to be reasonably okay, except I-95 is going to be a mess. The rest of Caroline's reasonably okay. King George is not. King George is going to have difficult problems because of the new bridge. So you're going to get congestion on 206, and you're going to get congestion on, is that 301?
Yes.
And on Route 3. So King George County has some significant problems to think about for the future on their roadway network. But it's 2050. We've got some time to fix the problem. We don't need to panic about tomorrow. If you compare it with 2022, there's small congestion happening here, and you can see there and there. So it's not serious now, but it's going to get serious if you do nothing. Now, that doesn't mean we aren't building anything in King George and Caroline County. It just means that those projects are not reflected in the FAMPO long range plan because we're no longer allowed to have Caroline and King George projects in the FAMPO plan according to federal highways. The projects that will be built in Caroline and King George will largely come through smart scale. So if the counties apply to smart scale and get improvements for these red spots, they will be able to fix those problems before we get to 2050. If they don't have funding to do it themselves, this could happen. Just an overview of what we're seeing in the regional model. So we're doing all of this to try and help people make better decisions about the future. And one of the things we need to ask at FAMPO is, are we building the right projects? And are we spending enough money on our region's transportation system to prevent the problem? And I would say, just looking at this, that in Stafford, the answer is probably no, right? The rural parts are fine, east is fine, but over here, Stafford's going to be a nightmare in 2050 with the current set of projects we have approved. And also, Route 3 out here suddenly becomes a problem, right? If you go to now and compare it with then, 2050, Route 3 is going to be impossible. It's going to be a total nightmare. But also 208 through Spotsylvania goes from being okay to being, there are places where it's okay, but it's going to be a mess. So we're in and I-95 is actually okay where we've put in the new bridges of the Rappahannock, right? Massive extra capacity, and it's working, it's yellow. But it's red down here where we're not adding capacity. So this by 2050 becomes a major crisis. But of course, state is also involved in that. It's not just us looking at I-95. Next slide. So that's just the two together. Next one. So which roadways, there we've mapped them for you, but in numbers. If you look at these dark purple colors, the darker they are, the worse it is. So the interstate and principal arterial roads are going to be a mess. And the minor collectors and local roads are going to be a mess. But the middle size roads, if I can use common speak, are going to be in a better state. So your very major freeways and highways are going to be problematic, and the small local roads are going to be a nightmare. But the in-between parkways are going to be sort of okay. Right? They won't be great, but it'll be possible. So what we realize out of that is we're going to have to do something about our small local roads. We're going to have to do something about the big US 1, I-95, 17, Route 3. Those are going to be gridlocked. Garrisonville Road also. That gives us an idea of the spending of money that we're undertaking is achieving something, but on the very big and very small roads, it's not enough. Or the patterns of development are not going to work for us. So you either change the pattern of development or you change the transportation system or both. So that's just a summary. Next one. So our next step when we first did this presentation was we're going to do the maps. So there are the maps. We've already ticked off the next step. There they are. Now we're going to look at the FAMPO constrained long range plan project list. We started yesterday doing that, and we're just analyzing the data in that list. How much are we spending? Where are we spending it? And that kind of thing to just help people who make decisions know what the effect is of the decisions we've already taken, and to then think about maybe we need to change that and what is it that we need to change. The FAMPO Policy Committee feel that we need a meeting with the Secretary of the Transportation Secretary to talk through this because it's problematic and we don't have enough funding. So we're busy working on that. And I think that's my last slide that I'm going to deal with. Is there more? Let's go. Oh, projects. So one thing that will help the congestion on I-95 is the new rail upgrades. So the long bridge over the Potomac River between Arlington and DC. They had the groundbreaking ceremony. They're starting work on the bridge. It's going to take until 2030 to build it. It's actually 4 bridges. It's a bridge from Virginia to the island, and then from the island into DC. And they're doing a bike-ped bridge from Virginia to the island, and from the island into DC. The next slide will show you a picture. So if you look at the picture, this exists now. This is how the trains get into DC Union Station from Virginia and out. This is the new long bridge, which is a duplicate of this one. So we're doubling the capacity, another 2 tracks. That is a biped bridge, which is going to be built alongside the new rail bridge. And they go to the island, and then of course from the island you've got to get into DC. So it's actually 4 bridges. It's 1, 2, 3, 4 over there. This is the yellow line metro bridge that Wilmata DC Metro runs, and those are the roadway bridges. But actually, I've realized after looking at this that the map is flipped. So west is east and east is west. It's the mirror image of reality. And I realized that, but when I tried to switch it, of course, all the text would read backwards if I flip it. So I didn't flip it for you, but it's actually the wrong way around. This is actually the west, and this is actually the east. But that's what they produced, so that's what I have to use. Next one. The Quantico station opening, I attended last week with most of the FAMPO staff came, and they cut the ribbon. All of this is new. That's the old original station there, which they've renovated, and then this is all the new headgear. We've added in a 3rd track, 9.2 miles of 3rd track, and a new platform in the middle. So this headgear is to get you over to the middle platform, so you don't have to cross the track. So we now have 3 tracks and a platform in the middle. And I think that is the last slide. I'm not going to do the other ones. I was just having some fun with policy committee with those last slides about what is a NIMBY and all that. You can read that on your own. Thank you, Jill. Any questions? Otherwise, I'm done.
I guess, sure, I just do have some just a kind of observation just going forward. Interestingly enough, I'm less concerned about our primary development boundary, the area where there is growth, in terms of being able to secure positive scoring for transportation applications because of economic growth, targeted growth, population densities. I'll tell you, just looking at Spotsylvania specific, my biggest concerns are areas actually like Courthouse Road and Route 3 and Brock and Old Plank intersections where we're outside the primary development boundary. I don't have a lot of population to show. I don't have economic growth to show in those areas because it's not targeted there. And then in areas like Brock and Old Plank and even Route 3, then you have the hurdle of the National Park Service too. And how do we overcome those issues as a region where the scoring may be against you or location may be against you, but yet there is clearly a health, safety and wilderness issue on these roads.
And over here, Orange County's gonna build 2,500 new.
And where are they going
Yeah.
at 95 unless there's some sort of other connection, they're going 3.
And you guess who has to pay for the upgrade to the roads in our region because of the traffic caused by new housing in
It's
their
a
region?
concern,
That's the problem with some of this.
yeah.
However, in those areas where you're seeing no new projects, but lots of traffic, it's the traffic from elsewhere that's
Yeah.
using that road.
Yeah,
So we're paying for traffic that might be going here
Louisa, yeah.
or, Lake of the Woods and all those places all have an impact. But that's what this model's updated now with the latest population, with the latest jobs data.
Yeah.
And that the transportation analysis zone level, we have asked each jurisdiction to comment on how many people are going to move into this zone. And so at a zonal level, it's pretty accurate and it's pretty scary when you look at even though you spent $3.2 billion in 2021 dollars, right? So they're already, this is what it looks like. So we need to think outside the box now as to how we deal with that. This includes the additional commuter buses of OmniRide, and it includes the additional trains of both Amtrak and VRE that are going to be put on the line between now and 2030. So those things are baked in. Yeah.
So it's, how do we get in front of that though? Like Dixon is probably the prime example. My in-laws live right there next to the country club. I started traveling there in 1999. It was okay. We got married 2004, 2005. The neighborhoods all start popping up there, and the Food Lion Shopping Center and all that. And it's 2026 that we're going to break ground to do that widening project. Like, how is there a way that we can get in front of that?
So it takes on average, and it doesn't have to, but because we're short-staffed in just about every institution in the region, it takes 7 years from the time you request funding to build a project. But to request funding, you already have to have a study done. So it doesn't take 7 years. It's taking you 9 to 10 years from the time you start working on a project until the time somebody cuts the ribbon, right? So we fixed this particular one, but we've not fixed so many others. The purpose of this model is that we can identify the problems 25 years out, and we can then plan what we're going to need in 25 years. One weakness with the system that exists now is that Smart Scale has a rule about congestion mitigation projects, and that is that you're only allowed to apply for projects that mitigate congestion in the next 7 years. So they will not fund projects that identify congestion in 2050. They will only fund projects that identify congestion that's going to be in 2032 or 2033.
By that point, you're not getting
You are
ahead of it.
Now we're behind.
You're almost reacting to it.
Yes,
So that's the
It's
problem.
Band-Aid fixing at that point.
Yeah, just
You have to have a crisis first.
and that was
It was
something
just-
they just decided this last round. It used to be,
So the other problem is that the things that can fix it and help you get ahead of it, some of them are not politically saleable to conservative politicians, right? So transit is one thing. Various forms of transit, it's hard to get funding for some of those forms of transit if the politicians are more conservative.
It's amazing the amount of money that is put into convincing people not to put transit in.
So we can address the longer distance problem with more transit. But one of the problems of this region is that the rail line is on the east and all of the new properties that are being developed are west of I-95. Now that's a strategic problem because you're allowing all the development to occur out here and out here, but you're putting the train line that takes them to DC over here historically. That's not going to work. That is going to break down the transportation system. I can promise you that the morning peak and the evening peak is going to be wrecked by that problem. Another problem we have is that a lot of our traffic is trucks that are not coming to this region. They come from Pennsylvania, they come from New Jersey, they come from God knows where, they come from the Port Authority down at Norfolk, but they're coming up here, they're coming up 301, they're going up US 1, but mainly I-95.
17 gets a lot in
And-
Stafford
Yeah.
too.
And they turn off to go
Yeah.
further inland
Yeah.
on 17. So part of this traffic is not originating in our region, but on the local roads it is. So this traffic is local traffic. Not so much out here on Route 3, not so much down here, but the rest of this is local traffic. This is all local traffic. Part of this problem is because there's no way to cross Quantico. Well, they won't give us permission. So all this lot have to come down Garrisonville Road, get on I-95 to get around Quantico. So that is another problem, is that Stafford County is landlocked. They've got the Potomac River here, they've got the Rappahannock River here, and they've got Quantico there, all of which present difficult barriers to overcome and really expensive to overcome those. So if you think of roadways as a grid, their grid is broken because on 3 sides they're landlocked, and they also don't have a very good local network of roads. See, these roads end nowhere, they don't go anywhere, right? Because you can't cross the river. So there's no crossing of the river here. And then over here, you've got, see the scarcity of internal network roads? It's a problem. And yeah, in Spotsy, you've got too much future traffic that's going to have to use 208. There's not an alternative to 208. And so it channels all the traffic from the little neighborhoods onto this one road. That's what's happening here. You know, and you've got in King George, the other alternative to get to DC and Maryland. And so you're the alternative to 95, and VDOT actually markets it as the alternative to 95. So you're in trouble because you're working against the bigger people who have got deeper pockets and more resources. So they widen the bridge, and now you've got this. So Spotsy has asked us to look at, where is New Post, where is 17?
Right there with the 17.
Here.
dot is, yeah.
So we're looking at possibly a new,
Right here.
There you go.
2 and 7.
oh, that's where
Yeah.
that's where the kink is, sorry, you're right. So we're looking at a new possible river crossing here.
Yep.
We're looking at a new possible river crossing over here.
Yep.
You should see that red. I mean, you're never going to fix it if they all have to get on 17. So you've got to have an alternative to 17 to get across here, which we're planning. We're planning this alternative here, but these are $200 million to $300 million bridges, right? This is not a cheap project. This is finding all of that money. We have to go to Smart Scale and they won't give it to us or whatever. But yeah, you've got to get people on trains. You've got to get people on OmniRide buses. You've got to get people out of their cars. Lee runs the program to get them to do anything except drive alone in their car.
Anything.
Any other form of transportation than driving alone in your car. That's what Lee markets every day of her life, to get people out of their driving alone. Driving of the full car is fine. But if everybody drives alone in their car, the line of cars becomes forever long. So that's the story. So the bad news or the good news, depending on how you look at it, is that we're not alone. Half of the United States is looking at this. They do the map of their region and they see the same mess. It's not unusual, but it is a coming disaster.
However, we do rank in the top in the country for.
We are the 4th worst, what was that ranking? Worst vehicles per,
That was for,
yeah, I think we're the fourth worst VMT per infrastructure mile in the country, not in the region, in the country. And we are the second worst in one of the other measures. Only worse, only DC is worse than us. So
That's great.
and that's because we've got a small population of our own, but a massive traffic coming through our region. So the per person count or the per mile count is very high. It's worse than the per mile traffic count here is worse than in DC. But there's a different metric
something
where
about per lane, like vehicles per lane too, that we scored
It's
very high.
complicated, but anyway, we're in trouble. Not yet. So if you think the congestion is bad now, this is not yet trouble. Trouble is coming.
As much as we would all love to build all the roads, that's just not feasible. I mean, financially, it's not feasible to build them, but then you have to upkeep them after they're built. And it's just, we need to rethink how we travel.
And we need to think where we put the new housing.
Where, what I was.
We have
Yes.
to use the zoning laws, stop people building further and further west in the counties because there's no transportation system out there to help. They're gonna all get in their car and, you know, those roads all join each other till they become Route 3 or 17 or whatever it is. So, you know, it's like a funnel. And the more you build out there, the worse it gets. We have to try to discourage development where there are less roads, because all of those roads, you know, filter into the biggest road in the area, and then that road becomes impossible, and then we have to make it 4 lanes, 6 lanes, 8 lanes, and then you become like Los Angeles eventually in 50 years or 100 years. So we've got to find a way to discourage people building further and further away from I-95. It's not good for the transportation system. We don't have enough money to build the roads for them to drive on. And then you've got to convince some people to take the train or take the OmniRide bus because that helps. You know, it's one vehicle, but you move 20 people, it's better. Or with a train, you move 400 people. Speaking of trains.
And it's much more relaxing.
Yeah.
It is significantly safer than people are not good at driving. Humans aren't good at something that requires you to do the same thing over and over again. We get bored. Start looking at phones and things.
I feel like people are getting more and more aggressive on it.
They are.
It's really aggressive.
Not just behind the wheel, just generally speaking, the younger generation is tending to show more aggressive tendencies.
I've seen you.
Now,
I've been watching the school.
young people
Yeah.
these days.
No, it's,
So
I
aggressive.
don't know, it has become a little aggressive as far as I'm concerned. Maybe you're right.
I don't want us to start being like, oh, yeah.
So the 3 things we know
Yes.
improve this are more fast transit, because slow, unreliable transit won't fix it.
Nobody wants.
Fast, high capacity transit. Changing your land use patterns, so
Yes.
that you put more people close to where the transportation already is,
Housing.
and building a grid of roadways where it doesn't all filter into one road that has to take all the traffic. You need a grid, multiple options, so it's better to build a separate road in a slightly different location to bleed off the traffic than it is to build 4 more lanes on the road that exists.
Okay.
Those are the 3 things that work. More heavy transit, more zoning that pushes the density to where the network exists, and building a grid of roads so that there's another optional road when this one's blocked.
That grid has become significantly more difficult. Projects are subjected to public hearings. We have interparcel connections that are set at property lines with the intent purpose to create additional connections and distribution of traffic in different directions. And when that public hearing comes with the new development that's gonna tie in, it's immediately discounted and it's politically, it's a hot potato. And those interparcel connections all of a sudden become emergency access onlys for fire rescue exclusively, because it's gonna cause cut through traffic. There's gonna be all these new people in the neighborhood cutting through, and it becomes such a significant issue at the public hearing point that I can't tell you how many interparcel connections, which would start helping to address that issue, are wiped right off the table, right like that at a public hearing. And against staff recommendations and addressing these transportation issues. I mean, you go to any area where it has an abundance of interparcel connections, connected roads, you can distribute traffic a lot better than these funnel effects that we keep dealing with. But at the end of the day, I've seen it for years now. It's kind of, it's almost kind of like a moat type of
Yeah,
mentality
sure.
where it's just like, I want my one access and everything around it should be insulated and protected and not connected to anything else. But it creates, it's calcifying the situation and unfortunately, it's still happening. And again, once it's at public hearing, it's such a hot button issue that these connections are not occurring.
And there's no way to make it county code that there must be these interparcel connections?
There are those VDOT SSAR requirements.
Remember too, if we don't get new roadways and connections into the comprehensive plans, people will build on all those pieces of land and then there's nowhere left to build a damn road. Now you've got to take their house and then the screaming starts.
Yeah.
So what you really need is for us to start drawing lines on a map as where the future roadways will be built, and then put those in the comprehensive plans so that we have space allocated to a future road and don't have the screaming because they already know a roadway is coming.
That is one thing that we do have, and we've, since 2022, we've been more aggressive on literally identifying parallel to route roads. Or quadrant kind of roads that take burdens off of a specific existing intersection and drop additional traffic connections. Thornburg Jackson Gateway area, VDOT has been very concerned about a lot of the development in this area, the Kalahari Resort. The county's been planning for a lot of development in that area since the late 90s, frankly. But there was never a road plan other than just decrease capacity on the existing roads, which didn't happen because the development wasn't happening. Now all of a sudden there's this windfall of development and there's no alternate roads planned. Now we have them. We've added them in the Thornburg area. We've added them down here in the Lake Anna area, parallel to, I don't know that that road network will necessarily address all of this, but in that immediate area, there are new road connections, east-west road connections, throughout the plan. But again, it also comes down to prioritizing them and getting them. And a lot of it's developer led. I'll be honest with you, it's profit improvements, constructing segments at a time. Until there's the money or support to actually prioritize, hey, we're going to build this entire road. They sit in a comp plan and they take time.
As long as you prevent somebody building on the land,
Yeah.
when the developer comes along, there's space to put in a portion of the road.
And that works when you have profit negotiation and you're dealing with a comp plan, but when you have by right development in the way,
Yeah.
there's no trigger there, and that's where you start running into problems there, and then it's kind of like a nice ask.
Part of that though is that VDOT can insist on certain roadway upgrades.
Okay.
And they have a little bit of what's the word? A little bit of leeway. Often jurisdictions put pressure on them not to demand these roadway upgrades because it might scare off the developer. But in fact, you actually want VDOT to require things because then at least you get the first part of the road developed by the person right there, right? And you sew them together over time, and then eventually the county has to build the last little piece because it's not involved with anybody's development. But VDOT can do that, but VDOT tells us that counties often tell them to stop. The economic development departments of jurisdictions tell them not to ask for too much because they might scare the development away. That's a double-edged sword, right? I mean, do we want the road or don't we want the road? Do we want the bus or don't we want the bus? You have to, Kalahari came to see us, Frank said, hey, what transit is there available to their site? So I referred them to the transit agencies because those are the people who can answer the question, but anyway, I'm done.
Discussion and action items, election of a vice chair.
I haven't thought about that.
Okay.
You know what I'm gonna say? Should we postpone it until we have more people in
It
attendance?
would probably be a good idea to have, especially on the locality side. Just fine with me.
I thought maybe I'd send an email out about it to the members and say that we're postponing it until the next meeting and we encourage everybody to come so we can have nominate.
Okay. So we have consent, unanimous consensus, push that to January. So we move on to the urbanized area, complete streets.
Great. Okay.
I think I talked to you guys about this before. It's been a long season. So this is a complete streets plan for the FAMPO urbanized area, just a census urbanized area. It's a project that we are going to be working on for the next several months with the help of all of you. So the FHWA, their new policy is to make complete streets the default approach when designing roadways. That is to prioritize the safety of everyone on the roadway, not just cars, but pedestrians, cyclists, transit, as well as the automobile. They're making federal funding available for this through the IAJA, at least for now, through several new and existing programs. Fredericksburg, Spotsy, and Stafford all have bike ped plans that they're working on or in process, and this will help tie them all together into a regional plan and make more funding available by doing that. So what is Complete Streets? So you guys probably know this, but just so you know, before Complete Streets, it's basically an automobile-based road, and afterward, we work with the area, the context that we have to make it for bicycles, pedestrians, transit, whatever is appropriate for that area. So they're context sensitive. These are things that it may include. It won't include all of these things, but it may have bus lanes, it may have sidewalks, it may have bike lanes, pedestrian refuge islands, crosswalks, transit stops, narrower travel lanes. It depends on whether it's in a rural area, suburban area, an urban area. The streets are going to look different as a result. So it isn't every street in the network. Part of designing a complete streets plan is choosing which routes are most appropriate to make a convenient network for everyone. So these are the local plans that we are going to be consulting as we work on this. Do let me know if there's any that we are missing. Those of you who are here and the folks who aren't here, I'll be asking this more. So the Spotsy Trailways plan, the Greenway update, the Stafford Bike Ped plan, and their other study that they did recently. Fredericksburg Pathways plan, and also the Transit Strategic Plan for Fredericksburg Go and OmniRide. I had a question. Oh, I know. So the Greenway updates that you presented to me, at least for the FAMPO jurisdictions, any shape files that are available for those we will need. I'll have Lita, our GIS analyst, reach out for that.
Yeah, I guess I would complement that. The Spotsylvania Trailways Master Plan, it would probably from those layers. We do have some amendments that occurred. Our latest amendment to that Trailways Master Plan actually was July of 2024. So we have some tweaks.
Okay, great.
Well, so I'll get you the updated Trailways Master Plan. Unfortunately, I don't have all those individual progress report. Like we had talked about before, we're going to try to do kind of like a progress report mapper, even regionally, to show how pieces are coming together. That's in development. It's being revised by GIS right now. I've already started working on it. I don't have that for you, but I have the plan lines.
So that's helpful, whatever you have.
Okay.
Lita will be reaching out to you guys for that.
And you've said that already, but I just want to emphasize that we're looking at urban areas for this, right? So we're not going into the deep rural parts of the counties.
Okay.
Yeah, that's,
The reason for that is that this is related to these federal funding sources.
Okay.
So when you look at the more urban parts of all of our jurisdictions, that's what we're going to work on, because that's where the money may be available to go and build that doesn't come out of your local county's funds. It comes out of, there's federal funds that are available to, even in the truck funding, there's
Wow.
funding for sidewalks and things, which is weird.
it's along truck routes. It's for bike ped safety stuff, and that's
Yeah.
Benchmark Road.
Yes,
And-
federal funding is available for that if we have this plan. So the idea is
great.
we're putting this together to unify all the jurisdictions' plans
That complements your
in
east-west
the
study too.
urban parts.
That complements the east-west study as well.
Yes,
Yes.
and then
Yeah.
you've got a document that you can go and say, give us the money
Love it.
out of your freight money because we want to build a bike path or
Yeah.
something.
It's great.
Get the post.
Or a bus stop, right? So the bus stops in this region have very poor infrastructure.
Yeah.
So
Oh.
the Fred Transit is rolling out new signage at the bus stops, but it's just a sign on a pole, maybe a bench, maybe a shelter, maybe all that we would like. So this is how you get some funding for those things.
Okay.
it looks like Kevin Brown has said Fredericksburg City Pathways Committee is also developing a gap analysis, which translates into potential projects from minor to major, which resolve the gaps. So that's interesting, and I would like to reach out to them about that.
Great.
This map does not show up well on this screen at all, but this is the census urbanized areas, which actually encompasses most of the routes that we did for the Greenways plan in 2021. So,
By the way, if you look
Also-
there on the very far bottom right, that little kind
little
of
piece right there.
piece that sticks out to the right,
You mean
that
the,
goes right up to the Caroline border. So if the Caroline County allows development across the border, they automatically become a member of FAMPO.
Huh.
They don't have to apply. If the Census Bureau says the urbanized area is now across that boundary, it's automatic. The same with Fauquier County and Stafford, the same with Orange County and Spotsylvania, the same with whatever. Some of our limits are right at the county line now. That's one case there on the right. That's the Caroline border. The urbanized area of Spotsylvania goes all the way to the Caroline border.
Orange County is quite close too. Actually, there's a very small gap.
It's not joined yet, but
It's not joined, but
there it's basically joined. You just need one extra block in Caroline County and they're automatically a part of the urbanized area.
so. Wow, what? Oh dear. All right,
Those colors are not working.
there's something wrong with our thing.
There was a guy in this week fixing it, so that did not work very well.
It did not fix very well. I will read these to you. This project will support funding application under the IIJA and required under the new bill. Work for this project also benefits the wider Greenway update, which is the mechanism for updating the active transportation plan. So all of this work is going to be overseen by all of you. That's something we're going to be working on over the next FY. So the project scope is being finalized. I sent that to Ian for review, and I'm going to be reviewing all the local plans. As I requested, please send me any available shape files. The draft map of the compiled regional information will then be presented to you, and then further steps will be outlined, presented. I'll present you the scope at the January meeting. That's it.
So everybody get the basic idea of everybody's bike bed plans. Look for a few gaps we can fill in, finish this plan, adopt the plan. You can then apply for new forms of funding that you can't without the complete streets plan. And also, if anybody argues that we shouldn't do this, the Infrastructure and Jobs Act requires us to spend 2.5% of our staff time on a complete streets plan or projects that are complete streets type projects. So we don't have an option. We got a waiver in the first year, but we have to implement this, so we have to have this. And the benefit is, once you have it, you know, Spotsy or somebody can apply for funding now because you now have the plan. The city can apply for funding, whoever can apply for funding, because you now have the plan that says you need this and where you need it. And you can then apply for the funding to build it, which includes things like bus shelters, and it includes shared use paths, and it includes sidewalks, and it includes all that kind of infrastructure, which you can fund through these various Infrastructure and Jobs Act funding systems. You can't.
It also solves, it also falls under our bailiwick of taking a sort of regional top-down
Yeah.
approach to look at all of your separate plans and see how they can fit together. See if there are any hurdles to them fitting together into a regional approach.
Yeah.
Right. We had some fun doing some slugging recently, so she could give us a report.
So slugging, which is a very interesting phenomenon that happens in our region. And as Eden said, I do everything possible that I can to get people out of their single occupancy vehicles and into something else. Probably the most interesting of that is slugging. And so we thought you guys might be interested in the numbers that we came up with this year. I always put up what is right next. It's the area's TDM program, and we do have, the most important part of the slide is our 50th anniversary open house celebration on Wednesday, December 4th. Please drop in anytime between 6:30 and 8:30 right here to celebrate our 50 years that we have been doing this since the oil embargo back in 1974. That's when we got started. So, and of course, TDM, you guys all know that that is strategies to reduce and redistribute demand on our infrastructure without having to build more infrastructure. So slugging, what is slugging? That is when we do exactly what our parents told us not to do. We get into cars with complete strangers and we go up and down the road. It's been happening for almost 50 years now in this region. It took a slight break during COVID, but it came back very quickly. They were out there pretty much as soon as the first vaccines came out. So this year we did notice what we think is growth from last year. Last year we definitely noticed growth from the year before. And I'll get to that in just a second, but there were some things that made the counts lower. We did count 347 riders at the 610 Stafford Borough lot and 37 riders at 610 Pine Road, which comes to, let's see. Oh, that was our outreach. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I got confused for a second. That was our outreach. We talked to that many people and we told them that they do qualify for the Guaranteed Ride Home program if they practice slugging. A lot of people don't know that they can get in on the Guaranteed Ride Home program doing this. They know about it for van pooling, for taking VRE, but they don't realize with slugging. So we made sure that they knew about that. Now, here's our results. So the slugs that we counted in this year is 402 slugs, which is a little bit less than last year. That's about 34 riders less than last year. And then we had 208 vehicles, which is about 12 vehicles less than last year. But we unknowingly had it on the first week of school. So it was the first day of school for many people. Stafford was having some issues with their busing. So a lot of parents were staying home to deal with that and teleworking. So it was a slight reduction. However, we did notice that there was some indications that slugging was starting at 610 Mine Road. And we're hoping that it's gonna maybe start at, a little bit further south. 17, they're trying to start up again. As far as destinations, the Mark Center is seeing a lot more slugging there. Actually, there wasn't any slugging, but they're starting to see slugging. So we do think it's increasing. Even though we show that it went back a little bit, we do think it's increasing. This is distribution through time on how the sluggers come in. You'll notice that between 6 and 8 AM is the main times that they come in. We did have our first rider arrived at 3:52 AM, which means we were there to count them at 3:52 AM.
Good on you.
Car did not arrive until 4:36 AM. I don't know if that is normal. I don't think it is. The average headway was 2 minutes and 30, 2 minutes and 32 seconds. But the average riders per car is 1.93. That headway it's more during these slower times. During this time right here, almost as soon as somebody's foot would hit that platform, they had a ride. I mean, it's hard to get transit that good, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the biggest question we always get asked is, do women actually do this? That's always our biggest question when people call in. They're like, women don't get into strangers' cars, right? They do. They do. It's actually 25% female. We didn't ask anybody. That's female appearing. So, and the weather was pleasant for a count. And this is some of the impacts of just this day for slugging. There were 804 fewer trips on I-95. That's an impact, right? There were over 32,000 vehicle miles reduced just on this one day through the slugs that we counted. Over 29,000 pounds of carbon dioxide reduced. And each rider saves about $14 each way. And I broke that down because if they slug out, they might ride the bus back. Slugging tends to coexist with buses because it's nice to have that guaranteed ride home through a bus if you can't get a ride home from the other way. And of course, the hot lanes, it was hard to find what the tolls are. The average was $8.33 in 2017 per transurban. I have a household member that goes up and down and uses hot lanes, and that seems incredibly low compared to what we're paying. So I think it's actually more than that. And to make it bike related, this is my bike. Bitch.
Nice
There
picture of
you
your bike.
go.
Yeah, it is electric. Yes, I do the electric.
Lovely
So,
picture of your bike.
Electric assisted.
yes, that's the only way I can make it up the hills around here. I'm too old for that. So are there any questions? And of course, we'll have this available for you guys to use in your comp plans and
Is there
everything.
any slugging activity out of the new commuter lot on Commonwealth Drive, Route 1, Spotsy? I know Omni Ride's operating out of there now, and Omni Ride, my understanding was one of the main reasons that it's actually starting to get some decent usage out of that lot. Initially, it
Absolutely.
was very quiet.
So
Omni Ride's helped.
that lot was a bit unique. It was planned before the pandemic.
Mhm.
So there was not any funding put into letting anyone know it was there
Right.
or educate or market it in any way.
It was a slow start for sure.
Because before the pandemic, we would be towing cars off of it before a lot was finished. You know, people just, the induced demand. So it kind of sat there as a sleeper, people not realizing it was even there until the buses started. So yeah, our early on counts were 7 people using it. It was very sad, but now there's a lot more using it.
I'd love to get your latest numbers on it. We're gonna be doing another major comp plan update, so I want to just make sure that I.
Absolutely.
It's great.
We count every October.
Okay.
Every October we count, so we just finished that one,
Right.
but I don't remember off the top of my head what the number was for that one.
That's cool.
But yeah, absolutely, I can get that for you.
Guys. Hey. want to do bylaws update with the amount of members we have here?
Well, I guess not, but I mean, no, I guess not, because it's kind of something that we need to draw everyone's attention to. The reason I wanted to do a review of the bylaws is because some things need to change, some things aren't being adhered to, and the committee just really needed to review them.
So you postponed your selection of
Yes.
your vice chair, so maybe put these two together.
Yep,
Bylaws and the vice chair you do on the same night.
at the next meeting.
Alright.
Does anyone have any ideas about how we make sure we get more people next time?
Well, I mean, do you think this is a one-off or a new normal?
The last meeting was not well attended.
Okay.
I have noticed a small drop off,
Mhm.
but there hasn't been anything like this. This is very unusual.
You know, never know.
So maybe the question is to ask 1 or 2 or 6 of the people who couldn't make it. Does the time not suit them, or is the venue not, what's the reason they aren't able to come? And when you find the answer, then you can see whether it's just they had a bad night, or whether there's something that doesn't work for them. The CTAC, for example, there are 1 or 2 people who can't get back from DC by 6 o'clock.
Right.
So they have joined online now as a compromise from work.
Okay,
So they're at their office and they join online, sitting in DC, and then they drive home after the meeting. I don't know what it is here. I guess you might want to just ask 1 or 2 of the people who can make it tonight, hey, can we do anything different that'll suit you better or something?
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, because it's citizen members and our other organizations that are listed with the staff.
Right. We'll have to see. Yeah, I've never seen anything like this before. So yes, I think we'll just pass on it until next time.
It's also election week.
It's a strange week.
I think
Yeah.
that Monday's a holiday. This past Tuesday was election day.
Be
People
surprised.
might have taken leave and just said, screw it, I'm gonna take the in-between days and just go on leave or something.
What day it was, what year it was.
Yeah, I should have done.
But I would actually ask, because when you ask, people will either say, oh, I was out of town, or they'll say, no, I can't get there at that time or something, and then you know the reason and you can do something about it.
Right,
Or also just the mere fact that you ask them makes them feel like wanted, like we
Yeah,
actually want.
like you are a valued
So you
member.
are a valued member.
Mhm.
But just the act of asking them sometimes does it.
I will do
Sometimes
that.
they will tell you a reason which you can help with.
Yeah, I know in the past, we've had some folks that were much more actively present. Recently, it's just appeared.
And also, I would also reach out to the jurisdictions in terms of vacancies that exist. So there's almost always a vacancy. So it's maybe time to remind them, hey, you've got 2 vacancies from Stafford, can you please fill them? You know, and then those 2 new people then kind of rejuvenate the committee a bit again, and that's also a thing to do.
Agreed. I will do that.
I know you raised that before on citizen
Yes.
too. And I've done it myself, and the feedback I've always received is we have to reach out to our county admins, and they have to notify their elected officials to find a citizen rep. Not heard any updates ever on that.
How do you find the meeting time and the venue and the everything else?
It works well. I work real close and I also live real close, so it's good.
Yeah, so you're not sitting in DC rushing back to get to the meeting, yeah. So that's a fun, yeah, just ask around. I would ask around, just, you know.
I will do that. We don't have any correspondence this time.
All right.
Um,
Any additional staff report?
We have a public meeting for the river crossing study on November the 20th at between 5 and 7 p.m. at the Ball Stadium. And what's the official name? Because I
Fred Knott
Virginia
Stadium.
Credit Union Park.
There we go. You can't call it Fred Nance. It's got to be the Virginia Credit
They paid a lot of
Union
money to have that name there.
Fred Nance Park. And that is to discuss the river crossing options and the traffic study and the cost estimates and the environmental screening and what the next steps are and get public comment, all that. So please help us advertise in your jurisdictions that if people are interested, they should come and talk to the consultant and look at the maps and discuss the costs and all that.
November 20th, 5 to 7 p.m.
Spread the word, please.
Mhm. Member reports. Brian?
I don't have anything to report specifically. I just appreciate the you gave and looking at 2050 and kind of worrying about the future. But a lot of things to think about. So thank you all.
Which bucket do you want to be in?
Yeah, I'll be in this one. Yeah, so I do want to report that Kim Mitchell has spread her wings and flown onto a better position. She and I really wish her well. She landed in a position that fits her perfectly, almost like it was designed for her. So, but we will be posting a new position soon. So if you know anybody,
We are just short of engineers, so they also need somebody. The city has got currently 0 transportation planners, so that's something that we encourage people to, you know.
Visual, do you have anything? Jacob?
Spotsylvania has a posting out right now for a transportation planner. Well, that'll be working out of the planning department. They are lead, on more on the land use side of things, rezoning. Coordinating with. So, sort of funds and construction management, things of that nature, so, we are hiring transportation. About all I have today.
And I don't have anything, so
You're not advertising any vacancy?
I couldn't even tell you. No, I think we built community development, so planning and zoning is.
Oh, good.
Um, we were looking for an engineer. The engineering department, I don't know if that's still posted.
I actually looked,
Have you-
you know, I was curious to see if you guys were hiring anybody, just to see where things stood with your county.
Environmental is where we have a
And-
gap still.
And I didn't see anything much.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was surprised.
Monday night, the board made Kelly Duke, who's our new director of community development, the subdivision agent, and Kenny is the senior planner and the zoning administrator.
What's his name?
I don't remember his last name, Kenny. It's gone. Too many new people.
Have you replaced what used to be next position?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, so yeah, tourism moved to community engagement, public information. But economic development is sitting without a director. And makes life a little interesting.
we sympathize with you.
That's it. If I can get a motion to adjourn to January 9th, it is the second Thursday because of the holiday.
And encourage everyone to come so you can elect a new vice chair and approve your bylaw.
Motion by Jacob,
He needs a second.
and a second by Lee, and all those in favor. Opposed, Joe votes aye. We will see you. in January.
All right, everybody.
I don't know if anybody else voted, but there goes one up.
Thanks, everybody. Good. to see
Thank you all.